What sets it apart from a project like PRINCE2 and PMBOK?
So this is P3 Express, and I highly encourage people to go to p3.express. P3 Express is a process to run a project and fits 90% of projects out there. So those who work with P3 Express do not deny the usefulness of existing best practices. We say we can use something more simplified and streamlined. And I can get 80% of the value with 20% of what is described in PMBOK or Prince. You actually get a systematic, specific enough approach to project management that you can immediately use, but you don't get bogged down into inputs and outputs. That is complex, needed, but unnecessary for many endeavors we call projects throughout the world.
Welcome to Life and IT Project Management, where we bridge the gap between life and IT project management with practical, relatable content for aspiring PMs and experienced PMs. I'm your ever-learning host, Justus Ayala. Today, we are joined by Pavel Jonis, a seasoned project and organizational change manager with a proven track record of leading IT migration, transformation projects, and building effective project management frameworks. With over a decade of experience managing diverse global teams of up to 20 people and constantly engaging with high-level management, Pavel has been a trusted consultant since 2016. His expertise spans project management, values-based leadership, and team building, all while maintaining a strong client focus and commitment to long-term growth. He's fluent in 4 languages. Pavel brings a global perspective and deep dedication to every initiative he supports. Please welcome Pavel Jonis.
Thank you for having me, Justus. I mean, that's quite an introduction. If I didn't know it was about myself, I thought it's an awesome person. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. All right, so let's get into the topic. The topic is implementing a project management system in an organization using P3 Express. So the first question to start, for organizations looking to implement a system, project management system, how does the P3 Express streamline the process compared to other methodologies?
Right. So it's a big question, right? Like, what are the challenges and how can we help organizations overcome those challenges when it comes to using a system, first and foremost, and then specifically P3 Express? So in general, we can look at it from the perspective of any organization and what challenges do they have before they start using it. So let's assume there is an organization that is inexperienced in project management and go through that case very quickly. And then we have an organization that is experienced in project management. And how can P3 Express help them there? And we are, in both cases, in both instances, talking about an organization that essentially has projects and has them running and is probably more or less successful, or they are more or less successful with their projects, right? But they actually need a certain structure, accountability, and also a feedback system to their management so that they have a structure they can rely on and not just individual brilliance when it comes to project management execution. So in the case of the first type of an organization that isn't very well versed and isn't very well experienced with project management, the first things that comes to mind is that they need to solve an issue of expertise, and that comes with actual knowledge of project management. P3 Express is a system that is much, much easier to get into. It is much, much easier to understand the dictionary of P3 Express than other PM frameworks due to the fact that it is also not that extensive. Being minimalistic and simple doesn't mean it's easy. However, it does mean it is easier to get into, right? And so when we have an organization that has, as you call, aspiring PMs or people who are actually fulfilling a PM role, even they do not call themselves project managers, right? But they run projects. They need that theoretical background. And with P3 Express, you can actually get them up to speed and help spread the understanding much, much faster. Now, when it comes to the type of a second organization where you have more experienced PMs, but you still don't have a system, what you need is a simple enough and understandable enough process that would create value quickly. You can improve and build upon whatever you implement and kind of bring aboard, but you need that first step of, okay, so what are we doing here? How does project management create value, and how does that help us actually be more successful with our projects, whatever they are? And so P3 Express creates that understanding very, very quickly. Whereas if you use other PM systems, you still need to, I don't know, not dump them down, but actually agree on which parts are important, which parts are that condensed, stuff that is really valuable to our organization. You already get that. You already get that condensed, bullion of this is the good stuff. You don't want to skip anything from it, and this will actually help you be more successful with whatever organization you're running. So in that sense, the challenge of agreeing on what the value is being simplified if you just start using a system that is already written and proven to have a track record.
That was detailed. That was very, very helpful. Very helpful. That already defines in some way what P3 Express really is. You did. Its applicability to both PM immature and PM mature enterprises, and how they can lever up from that going forward. That leads me to the next question. What really sets us apart from approaches like PRINCE2 and the PMBOK?
Right. Justice, may I share a screen in this case, huh? What do you think? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Right? So let me share. Can you see this window now? Right?
Definitely, yes.
Yes, fantastic. So this is P3 Express in a nutshell, right? Here we see all the parts of it, and I highly encourage people to go to p3.express that you see on the screen. It is also a URL that you can visit, and you will get P3 Express in many languages. One of them is Lithuanian that I have translated myself from English to Lithuanian. Great work, really interesting stuff. And so there are many languages that P3 Express has been translated into. It is first and foremost a project management system. And what does that mean? Now, I will not go very deep into that discussion, but when we talk about PRINCE2 or PMBOK, we would rather call them frameworks, or I would even go as far as to call those collection of good practices methodologies. P3 Express isn't that. It is almost, to my understanding, and we each have our own kind of little explanation, it is a process as to how to run a project. And what is very cool about it is that we believe it fits 90% of projects out there. There are very complex and big programs and projects that may benefit from a more detailed approach or a more kind of, I don't know, maybe, complex approach to project management. However, P3 Express, being as simple as it is also incredibly adaptable. So what I mean by that is that if you use the techniques and the best practices to plan a project described in PMBOK, you can actually apply them while using P3 Express. That's not an issue. So it is also compatible with PRINCE2 and PMBOK. It does not stand in opposition with it. People who have created P3 Express are PRINCE2 lecturers, and they are also the same people who work on PMBOK edition 7, for example, right? So again, those who work with P3 Express do not deny the usefulness of already existing best practices. What we say is that we can build upon them and use something much more simplified and streamlined. So here you see a few parts like project initiation, monthly initiation, weekly, daily management, monthly closure, project closure, and something that is I find a little bit more interesting and specific, that is post-project management, that usually does not exist within other systems. There are some of them that are a little bit older, but not in the ones that you expect. And another thing that is brilliant about it is that it has cycles. And when I showed this to one of my mentors, former manager of mine, and a person whom I strongly believe is a great project manager, he said, well, it's nice that P3 Express has circles. The agile believers will not have an allergic reaction to it immediately. And I played it off as a joke. However, we can take a little bit deeper look into that and also say that P3 Express can be used with agile methodologies to run projects, because it does not stand in a position to that either. Meaning, when you run a project in an agile environment or with agile methodologies, you still need to talk to people. You still need to manage risks, manage procurement. You still need to kick project off. And there is work for project manager that is quite universal. So P3 Express is specifically that. It is a process that you go through that any project manager actually can pick up and use, regardless of whatever system or framework organization has. And it can also be implemented as a basis for a project management procedure within an organization. So you do not adopt it one-to-one, but you actually go into the details of what the organization is about, what their business model is, and then you need to adapt it. A great thing about P3 Express is that it uses a Libre license, which means it is absolutely free to use as long as you contribute your usage to P3 Express. And if you want, you can also have a practitioner exam, pass it, and be an active P3 Express practitioner. But it is not mandatory. The thing that I like about P3 Express, it is about that value that you create as a PM that comes from real usage and practicality instead of a paper that you get. When I saw it for the first time, I knew it is a system I can teach people project management than I would using other methodologies. And I can get 80% of the value. You know that Pareto principle, right? I can get 80% of the value with 20% of what is described in PMBOK or PRINCE. And that is P3 Express to me. This is where you actually get a systematic, specific enough approach to project management that you can immediately use, but you don't get bogged down into inputs and outputs and project scheduling. That is extremely complex, needed, but also unnecessary for many, many endeavors that we call projects throughout the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for deep diving into that. I will collapse the next question. So, in fact, the three next questions I have, and we can break it into the two use cases: project management mature, project management immature, enterprise. What would be the hindrances to adoption, right, of the P3 Express system? What would be the hindrance? And when I say hindrance, it could be tool, it could be other challenges, right? Or understanding. What would be the typical hindrance? That's one. Then the second part of it will be, so with AI transforming project management, how do you see that impacting or being integrated with P3 Express?
Right. So I don't know if P3 Express adoption is any different from any other organizational change where people are resistant to change in general, right? And they would go from, let's say, I have a way of doing things. And then Pavel comes into organization and says, now we will do projects as per P3 Express. And so people start asking questions, well, who is Pavel? Why does he decide? And what the heck is P3, right? And those are generally pretty natural questions to ask. Apart from me being or not being an authority, we can take a look at the initial skepsis that experienced project managers have when I start telling them about P3 Express. There is natural curiousness because we are all looking for some news in our field, right? And there hasn't been news for 10, 15 years. Like we have PMBOK version 7, PRINCE2 has been around for forever. Other systems have been around for forever. And here we have P3 Express, and some people think it's shamanism and coming back, to, I don't know, natural healing and crystals, but it is not. We are not about selling, something that is kind of a quick win solution and you do this and your project problems are solved. It's not about that. It is about actually understanding deeply where project management brings value and where you as a project manager create value. What is your job as a project manager? And people, when doing the job in a specific organization, they start doing work of an office administrator, of an IT system administrator. If we talk specifically IT, they start doing IT architect work. Just the other day on Friday, I had a conversation with a stakeholder who said, I don't want technical PMs because they don't do PM work and they start doing the SME work. They start doing subject matter experts work. They start doing IT architects work instead of doing project management, right? And he says, I want PM who is a professional project manager and not a professional IT manager. So even the knowledge in that specific field, as this podcast is about IT, could actually hinder and stop you from being a good PM. No, it'll not stop you, but maybe, kind of it can put some brakes on you getting better at PMing. So, and here we come back to that question. So what do you do as a PM? So people feel threatened, just as with all of the change, right? And when you go through the process with them, the usual response and answer is, well, I already do that. And that's fine because you have been in the field for 10 years and you know what to do intuitively and actually, systemically, like through the knowledge, through the examinations, through whatever. We trust you. And this is then an agreement on how to do it collectively, right? So that explanation and going from the initial skepsis to believe that this system doesn't actually oppose to whatever you have been doing as a project manager, but can help you in certain steps. And then I had very experienced project managers with 30 plus years of experience coming into my training classroom, and I would be like, well, what can I teach you? And they'd be like, you know how many seminars and sessions I had about project management in my life? And I'm like, I can only imagine. And they're like, yeah, but I'm still interested in this, right? And they're the most curious people because this is something new they have not heard. And they will come away with one idea. For example, do you do peer reviews, Justice?
Depending on the project, yes.
Right, depending on the project. And that does make sense, but you know of them and you sometimes do them. Well, peer reviews are part of P3 Express, right? They're installed. And now peer review is not something that we would think as part of integral project management system, but it is within P3 Express. What it does is it invites organizations to think about what is essential to get better at project management. And peer review is a very specific tool to ensure that there are two pairs of eyes that are looking at the same PM documents, right? That are of the same caliber, more or less. And it also ensures that within the organization, people are having conversations between themselves because PMs are like stars. And I'm not talking about them being, kind of in the clouds or whatever. I'm talking about the culture. And the culture of stars means that each and every project manager lives in their own kingdom. A project is their own organization, it's their own creation, and they don't necessarily commune with other people about the issues they're having. And then we have a system that is P3 Express that is designed in a way where peer review mandates that conversation, right? So again, it's a little detail that how can we get better at project management? And there is a system that helps you get there. There are many more such examples, and this is just one of them. So the main hindrance to get into is, again, just the natural resistance to change, natural skepsis to anything new. And the last hurdle is the belief of the upper management that a system is needed at all. And here we come to a discussion that is not for an outside consultant to have. It is between the team themselves and kind of the important people within an organization that know project management enough to convince and to educate and to show the value of such a system to the higher management that would in turn have to support such a change. So the last part is crucial to even think about adopting P3 Express as a system within an organization, right? So if there is no support from upper management, it's more or less doomed to fail. Let's put it that way, right? And you had a
Awesome.
second question about AI,
Yeah,
right?
yes, the integration of AI into evolution of P3 Express, because we do have P3 Express, we do have P5, right?
Yes,
So
portfolio management.
adopting AI through time, and I believe that all systems, just as in all project management softwares and systems, there is a deployment of one framework or the other, whether it's waterfall or agile, right? But most importantly, all of them would have to integrate AI features and APIs and all that. So, but how do you see P3 Express also being adopted, being integrated into tools, AI tools, and so forth?
Okay, so let me ask you a question here. Let's play a game. What do you use for project scheduling, just?
Depending on the project, so we still use Microsoft Project, but depending on the team, because I'm a program manager, so depending on the team, they still can use Jira.
Right. So the first and foremost is I ask you a question, what do you use for scheduling? And the most natural answer for any PM is Microsoft Project, maybe Excel. And there are Excel wizards out there. And actually, I would argue that Microsoft Project is an overpowered Excel that is created for a specific reason, right? And you agree. So we are in agreement here, right? And then there is what I would argue are not only scheduling, but also collaboration tools, such as Jira or and various Miro boards. However, you can use that for Miro. You can create specific Miro boards for agile project scheduling to create, sprint lists and your product backlogs with the dates, etc. And it's all nice and good. Now, let me ask you, do you use ChatGPT or any other AI tool?
Enterprise, no. Personally, yes.
Exactly. Okay, personally, yes. What do you use it for?
Research, quick feedback, and also checking. I could do a brain dump of thoughts and just have it condensed and make it concise and compelling for me, usually.
So basically, smarter text generation, or maybe some sort of, quick search instead of Google nowadays that I would also use for specific profession-related topics, right? And this is the same thing I would use AI for now. So how AI is constructed now does not fit what we do as PMs. It does not fit specific PM work. It helps any PM at everyday tasks of creating presentations, creating emails, doing research, but that is not PM. My wife is a lawyer. She uses AI tools as well, for text generation, checking certain stuff, etc. But it is not lawyer work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is more of a text generation. It's more of those general queries. Now, what I would like to see from AI first, before I say we can adopt it as PMs, is doing work in Microsoft Project or in Jira. And then I will say how we can adopt it. I actually asked this when I was at a conference in Helsinki. I've listened to a presentation by a Microsoft employer from Finland, and he showed to project managers how you can use their own AI in Word, in PowerPoint, in email. And then I raised my hand and said, what about Microsoft Project? And he says, it's probably in the pipeline. We don't even have a release date yet.
I every day I fear for them retiring Microsoft Project, but anyway, it's not a real flip. But anyway, whatever.
We have Microsoft, the biggest company, the biggest IT company in the world, and they haven't solved AI with project management. It's more about presentation creation, text generation, pictures generation, but not about specific work, right? So what I mean by that is I do believe it's coming. I am not a skeptic on that, but I am very much a realist. As a project manager, my job is to manage risks more so than anything else, together with communication. If I manage my risks, if I manage my communication, that's more than half of the job done, right? Or maybe
Yes.
90%, like depending on the project. So that's what it is about. And then we come in with this hype of AI, which is incredible. And we all want our job to get easier. But I'm afraid to tell you the scheduling of a project is not going to get easier in the next 5 or maybe even 10 years. You still have to define dependencies. You'll still have to think about the risks, and that's just the scheduling part. And then we come, to, I don't know, work with a calendar, with scheduling meetings, with actually managing your stakeholders. When there comes out a software that can help you with stakeholder management and stakeholder management mapping, right? I will be the first one to use it because that is PM work. I can ask ChatGPT now, who are the typical stakeholders for an IT data center migration, right? And ChatGPT will give me the list, but I still need to use my common sense to double check whether that is correct. That is number one. And I still need to manage, quote unquote, manage those stakeholders. None of the AI tools will help me with that apart from
No
generating
way.
emails, right? So using AI for new PMs is much more beneficial than for experienced PMs in a way, because they can get the general knowledge of the internet at the tip of their fingers very fast, right? So it's that learning curve that should be not as steep anymore and should be flattened a little bit from the learning perspective. But for experienced PMs who do really complex tasks, well, in my opinion, AI has still a ways to go. And at least for me personally, it hasn't shown yet that it can perform those complex tasks. I may be unaware, I may be ignorant at some point in this regard, but this is what I see right now.
Understood. Definitely, when you speak of benefits management to stakeholder management to process management, even to, yes, you can track risks, but what can you do if a human element is not involved, right? So all those things cannot be handled by AI, which is something we are grateful for. And that will take, to your point, 5 to 10 years to handle. So thank you so much for every feedback, every response you have given. They have been concise, they have been sharp, they have been straight to the point. And I believe strongly that the audience will benefit immensely from it, from each of them. Now, I know that there will be some of them would need to go research and find out more about P3 Express themselves, get on a course, get on a program, so that they can learn precisely how it benefits them, as opposed to, grabbing another framework and getting bogged down and so forth. But anyway, the more you learn, the better. It doesn't mean that it's not this or that. You could learn both, right? And apply what is best depending on the use case. Thank you so much. Now, at this point, what is the best way for the audience to reach out to you?
Well, the best and easiest way is, of course, to find me on LinkedIn. Pavel Jonis, as simple as that, on LinkedIn. Just ping me, and I respond to all my messages.
Thank you so much. You are a very fantastic guest. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation. So at this point, I will be able to say that please remember to, like, if you enjoyed this interview, please remember to like, comment. We want engagement. What can be improved? If you want Pavel to come back on a different topic, let us know. But most importantly, we would like that you subscribe to our channel, Life and IT Project Management. And as I always say, every man is the architect of his fortunes. Thank you so much.